the tactic of punching down is widely used by this entire administration and widely used by the entire health and wellness industry as a way of activating people's anger about anyone who dares not to conform to the health and beauty ideals that they have spent their time trying to conform to. We went from like figurative punching down to like, we're just going to literally get somebody who punches people and then we're going to have him be the messenger.
Welcome back to Making It Awkward, an independent podcast brought to you by people who are never going to run out of wild things to talk about in 2026. I'm your host, Jessica Wilson, clinical dietitian and author of It's Always Been Ours. You can find me on Instagram at jessicawilson.msrd. You can watch the show on YouTube. You can email the pod at makingitawkwardpod@gmail.com. You can rate, review, and subscribe to the show. You can join the Patreon for as little as $3 a month and help this podcast be sustainable. You can buy podcast merch on my website that says I came, I saw, I made it awkward. All right, the 2026 Super Bowl gave us a commercial that shook many of us to our core and also confused the fuck out of me. Today, Tigress Osborn, Executive Director of the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance, joins the pod to talk about the MAHA food triangle ad that featured convicted sex offender Mike fucking Tyson. The 59-year-old boxer told us to fat shame people and stop eating processed food in a close-cropped black and white video.
My sister's name was Denise. She died of obesity at 25. She had a heart attack. I was so fat and nasty. I would eat anything. I was like 345 pounds. A quart of ice cream every hour. I had so much self-hate when I was like that. I just wanted to kill myself. We're the most powerful country in the world, and we have the most obese, fudgy people. Something has to be done about processed food in this country.
And then this has not been a one-off appearance for him. Tyson has since been at press conferences with RFK Jr. and Brooke Rollins, the head of the USDA. There are also official government AI-generated images of RFK and Rollins with Tyson's face tattoo. Tyson also joined Callie Means and RFK Jr. for a Fox News interview. Laura Trump interviewed them in what seemed to be an elementary school gym where each of them were sitting on tiny chairs. Maybe that's the only venue that would book them after seeing this commercial. Last week, Tigress and I were featured in a Mashable article by Chase DiBenedetto. In it, Tigress says, the requirement of conformity to a particular aesthetic and a particular acceptable body type goes along with fascism and nationalism. She says, we see those tactics employed across government and public policy. It is not new for fat people to collectively be attacked by the U.S. government. In the article, I noted that the ad is consistent with the government's attempt to appeal to the real men of the manosphere, promoting a hypermasculine fitness-based solution to mental and physical health. The Super Bowl ad was directed by Brett Ratner, who also directed the Amazon-financed film Melania. Ratner was featured in the recent release of The Epstein Files, pictured cuddling a woman sitting between him and Epstein. He was also accused of sexual assault by multiple women in 2017. Tony Lyons was the one who created the ad. He said he got a bunch of billionaires to give him money to make it happen. Lyons is the founder and president of Skyhorse Publishing and helped raise money for RFK's presidential campaign. He created the nonprofit MAHA Center that is credited at the end of the video. The idea of a nonprofit MAHA organization is wild. There was so much to discuss about this commercial. This episode focused only on the ad. We could have talked about Mike Tyson himself for another hour, especially as more and more people in the MAHA Con are making AI images of themselves with Tyson's face tattoo. If Mike sticks around in our actual government, Tigress and I will chat again about Tyson specifically and our experiences witnessing his behaviors as we were coming of age. Tigress, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. What a week we have had. Super Bowl to today. It's only gotten worse, friend. Is how I feel about it. Initial reactions to the black and white, overly dramatic and weird commercial.
Remind me whether we swear on your podcast?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Because my whole initial reaction was seriously like, what the fuck did I just watch?
Exactly.
Like that was my literal, I'm watching the Super Bowl with my cousin, and we're mostly watching for the Bonito Bowl and the commercial. She's a little bit of a football fan. I'm interested in like the pop culture and the sociology around sports, but I'm not really that interested in football itself. I'm like cheering for the Seahawks because their owner seems like a slightly less terrible billionaire than the other billionaire or whatever. And so I'm mostly watching for the halftime show and the commercials.
Yes.
And, you know, heartbrokenly watching that I can't divide my time between the Turning Point halftime and the real halftime, you know, because as one aspires to do. But so we're watching the commercials and I'm already keyed up. I missed the Serena Williams GLP-1 commercial. I was in the bathroom, so I only heard a part of it from outside of the room. But like I've seen some of the other like weird diet shit or whatever. And then we just get to this and I was like, and it literally is just like, what is happening? And then I don't know what happened after the commercial because I spent the next like 15 minutes on my phone trying to find out a little bit more about the assertion that his sister died, quote unquote, of obesity. Because I know a lot of Mike Tyson lore just from like, he's close-ish to my age. I kind of grew up in that pop culture moment of his rise to celebrity. But I didn't know that. And so like I immediately was like, and I didn't know that. And I saw at the end of the commercial who funded the commercial. And I was immediately like, oh, this is probably full of lies. Aside from the obvious lies that I can see, this probably has some additional lies. So I was like, I'm literally on line like, does Mike Tyson even have a sister? Like, you know. So that was my initial reaction was just like, A, what the fuck? And then B, what a tragedy to exploit that tragedy. And then, that's still my reaction. So it's like days later and those are still the two primary reactions that I have.
Yeah, on Friday before the Super Bowl, I believe they released it on social media, and I follow a lot of trashy MAHA stuff just to know what's happening. And the MAHA community was so excited. I was like, I don't know if this is real. They just made this video. I cannot see it at the Super Bowl. I don't think it's going to happen. Not only was it at the Super Bowl, everybody saw it because it was in the commercial break after Bad Bunny was on. It wasn't even like interspersed. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to see it. I'll hear about it the next day if it's on. No. We're going to pay not only for Mike Tyson and this commercial, we're going to pay however much it was for it to be in the commercial block after the halftime show.
Yeah.
It starts with the story of the sister and goes on a terrible journey to him eating a quart of ice cream, every hour or something. Like we move and why? Like out of grief? Was that then? Was that now? Like, and he's like feeling terrible and wants to kill himself. And I'm like, what?
It's, well, I mean, yeah, the why is all in this sort of like, first of all, it's just to me a chaotic commercial, right? Because it's just like all over the place of like, my sister died. I was a pig, you know, eat an apple, my kid, MAHA. Like, I don't know what's happening. But it felt to me, you know, I told my friend afterwards, like, this feels to me like it was scripted by the screenwriter of The Whale, like this narrative of like something tragic happened and I was sad and then I ate until I was gross. The end. Like, and now I'm thin, right? Like I don't, it just like, it all seemed like everything about this seems like tragedy, but it's not being treated like tragedy, right? Like, and this seems like it's about depression and grief.
Yes.
And I walked away from this like, so Mike Tyson needs therapy, which I think, you know, if you've been following, is not a new thought, right? Like I didn't walk away from this like, oh yeah, I gotta check out that food pyramid. Like I did not walk away from it like that.
People didn't know. Yeah, that it was the food pyramid until after Googling it.
Yeah, I didn't make the initial connection that this is like directly connected to the US government, right? Because initially, like I saw the flash of like the MAHA Center and I was like, oh, that's some, you know, AstroTurf organization for some MAHA bullshit. But like I thought they would at least maintain the facade of like, we're just concerned citizens who want to make America healthy again. Like I did not immediately make the connection of like, oh, this is about that inverted food pyramid? Like, what? But then it was immediate. And in the aftermath, you know, like seeing it in real time, I saw the flash that said the MAHA Center. And that was one of the things I was also Googling right after. When I should have been, you know, Googling like, now show me the Puerto Rican Sign Language version of the Bad Bunny Super Bowl. Like that's what I would have been Googling if this hadn't ruined my day.
Yes.
And it ruined my day first in my, you know, just in a personal way. And then immediately like my NAAFA brain turns on and I'm like, where is this going to come up in, you know, like where does this fit in with everything else? Right. And where does it fit in with everything else we're seeing during the Super Bowl, which, you know, there's a lot of like, oh, AI and surveillance culture and like all the other just sort of craptasticness of the Super Bowl commercials this year. Yes. Which I can't even do my like, you know, media critical thinking stuff around anything else because I'm just juxtaposing Mike Tyson and, you know, and Keenan from SNL, right? Like I'm just juxtaposing those in my mind because, I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to take life advice from DJ Khaled and Mike Tyson? That's what, like, no. So, you know, but like when my work brain kicks in, right? When my like fat community, fat advocacy brain kicks in, I'm not just thinking about sort of the gut punch of the term fat and nasty, right?
Sure.
The term fat and nasty. I'm not just thinking about that. I am thinking about the sort of the way that this commercial empowers people to talk about fat bodies that way.
Yes.
Right. Mike Tyson's supposed to be a hero here. Right. And I learned later that, you know, that RFK Jr. has referred to this as the most important Super Bowl commercial of all time.
Correct.
And the most important Super Bowl commercial of all time just put a target on fat people's backs. As though we don't already have that. Right. As though we don't already have that. So it's just like, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Super Bowl commercials.
And it's gotten worse. This morning I sent you a reel. I think now would be a good time to ask you to open it up and tell me what you think from your phone.
Lord. Okay. Well, I'm looking at this from Secretary Kennedy's official account. Processed food
it starts
kills.
with a white guy.
Classic Homer Simpson donut. Mike Tyson slapping it out of his hands.
Processed food kills. Remember that.
Processed food kills. Remember that. So it's like literally Mike Tyson slapping food out of a thin white man's hands. Yeah. So brace myself for the TikTok challenge where people just go around slapping food out of fat people's hands. Is that what you're saying?
That part. And it's like, this is giving eating disorder. Like how many stories have I heard where, you know, parents, people, have just like slapped food out of people's hand or like shamed or yelled at them for eating certain foods. And then they end up like, you know, hiding that food in their underwear drawer or whatever it is. It's like, so you just made that okay. You like used violence, right?
Is it right? The direct connection with violence is like, you know, it's not just that Mike Tyson is a professional boxer or retired professional boxer and that, you know, his career was violence, right? But we've made that career socially acceptable and in fact socially rewarded, right? But then also like he's known for violence outside of his work, right? Correct. And particularly violence against women. And, you know, this is just like, if we genuinely cared about health, we would not be like, why don't we bully some people into health? Because we would pay attention to the fact that every bit of research, everything other than anecdotal evidence from bullies and from a handful of people who are proud to have sort of like gone over to the dark side and joined the bully culture after having been bullied, like everything other than that tells us that bullying people is counterproductive to health. And yet, you know, we're just endorsing that, right? But also like, so after this, I did spend a little bit of time, like, just, you know, getting ready to talk to you about this and thinking about it more because it won't leave me alone. And I actually really terrifyingly had a dream about Mike Tyson and RFK Jr. last night. And now I just can't, like, cannot. But I spent some time, like, I was just looking at Mike Tyson's social because, like, they have this big press conference and they're, oh, this is so important. And, you know, Mike Tyson's like, I want this to be the fight of my life. The fight against obesity is going to be the fight of my life. Like, this is the fight of your life, but you never spoke a word about this publicly until these people paid you to be in this commercial?
Right.
Because literally until the day that the marketing of this commercial rolls out, there is no evidence of Mike Tyson having said anything about any of these things ever.
Right. So In a CBS Mornings interview with Mike Tyson, the host is asking him how this came to be, and Mike Tyson says, "Oh, I got together with my friend. He's a marketing guy." And we were like, "Oh, what could we do together?" And I was like, "So you were looking for a place for you, to get into some sort of paid position, organization, visibility." And I'm like, "Why? Like, you need money. I get it." And then at the end, the host is like, "Oh, and speaking of fights, you have one coming up, da 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 da." And I'm like, "So you were just looking." Again, back to your question. Does he have a sister? Did she die? Like all of these things. Or did this just sound really good for this ad? Yeah. So that's what he has to gain. Tony Lyons, who MAHA, what was it?
Girl.
Company Corporation, I don't know what it is, elicited
MAHA
money
Center.
Yes, from billionaires to put this together.
Yeah,
Why?
That's what he said to the New York Times, from billionaires. And like, so y'all had billions of dollars.
Right.
And instead of actually investing that in healthy food for children,
Nope.
you paid Mike Tyson to verbally fight fat people, right? That's what you did with that money. Okay. Well, but also, you also see Tony Lyons now in the media talking about how like this is one of the greatest gifts to Republicans for the midterms, that making a connection to MAHA is the way to change their public perception, to say, like that as they are taking food out of the mouths of children and like, harassing, children and families, immigrants, people perceived to be immigrants, people who like immigrants, people who talk to an immigrant, whatever, like aside from all of that, right? Here's how to sort of redeem some of your public image. You could act like you really care about kids and health. And you can do that through MAHA. And you can do that by having Mike Tyson slap food out of people's hands, I guess. I don't but that connection of sort of like, I have an awareness, as somebody with money, resources, time, and an interest in political investment. I have an awareness that these midterms that are ahead of us are looking pretty dismal for us. I know what will save it. Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
Also, will it? I have not been able to see any of the wellfluencers, the food babes, speak well of anything other than like, this is so remarkable. He's fighting big food. Like they've not said anything concrete about we need to be like violent in our quest for Make America Healthy Again. It has been interesting. What I have seen from all these wellfluencers is AI photos of them with Mike Tyson's tattoo on their face. Tony Lyons included.
RFK Jr. included.
And Brooke Rollins included USDA.
Yeah.
Do you think this will help? Do you, like this aggression?
Do I think it'll help
with the midterms?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what motivates Republicans to do stuff. I mean, do I think that beating up on vulnerable people will help sell the Republican ticket? I mean, that seems to be working. So I don't know that maybe the actual messaging around food and health won't help, but maybe the actual messaging around like, it's okay to be abusive to people whose lifestyles you don't agree with or whatever. Like they seem to really turn on to that. So who knows? I can't even begin to understand that logic. But the thing is like, this is just the war on obesity over again, right? And we always have to invoke this language of war and the fight and the, at least I can say like, I have critiques of Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign. I think anybody who does any kind of advocacy for fat people or for eating disorders or anything has critiques of that campaign. Even if you believe there was well-meaning, whatever you believe about Michelle Obama in that campaign, at least she didn't call it like the war on fat kids, right? Like, because everything else was like, I mean, it effectively became that in some ways, but like, this just feels like, so we're just doing C. Everett Koop, but with podcast bros now, right? And that is like, we've been there, we've done this. And it's always to me is like, what is the other most of the time I'm like, who in big food pissed these people off? Because these are just big food is just some other billionaires. I thought those were your people. Right. You'll protect you'll protect big pharma, you'll protect big tobacco, you'll protect big anything else, big tech, big whatever, what did Nabisco do to y'all? But like, okay, here's the thing. One of the things I have learned in years of advocacy for fat people, and before that, being a DEI professional and doing work around race injustice and class injustice and gender injustice, one of the things I've always learned is like, the tide will change when they see where the money is. So where are they seeing the money instead of big food? I mean, big supplements, obviously, and
That's
also just other
at.
big food.
Yeah.
Right? It's big supplements and it's like other big food, right? Yes. So y'all are mad at PepsiCo, but you just want to take whatever PepsiCo is doing and transfer those profits somewhere else. This is never about actual health.
Correct.
It never is.
Yes, fully agree. I think it's absolutely the supplement industry. It's also the app-based like data collection thing. So the CGM for levels, Mark Hyman's Function Health, like you were collecting blood like data on people who just sign away, as I did, like all of their rights to the data in my DNA. And they can sell that. And, for other people, the Oura Ring, all of these things that, you're recording your exercise and then and it's recording your heart rate and all of these things if you want to input them and track them. So people are selling that as well if you're pushing individual solutions to what is supposedly a processed food problem and a big food problem. So I agree. Money. They want it. Quote, big food.
Because there's never a conversation about public policy to change what those food companies are allowed to manufacture. The conversation is always like, change the public opinion so people will stop buying that stuff and change and stir up the taxpayers so that we're blaming big food and the individuals who buy any of their products for wasting our money. But like, you're the one wasting our money because you are employed to manage systems. That's what you are supposed to be doing as the head of a federal department. And that's your actual job. Your job is not do press conferences with Mike Tyson where he beats up a carrot stick or whatever. Like, that's not what your job is. So like your job is to actually ensure that these systems work. And if your complaint is this system doesn't work, why aren't you taking that out? Why aren't you creating things within the system to do something about that? Why are you trying to shift like individual? And so you change the food pyramid, and the food pyramid does have a lot of systems applications, right? What goes into school lunches, what hospitals do with their food programs, like whatever. But you didn't change anything about the resources to make anything happen to anything about those foods. You just made some new art with a steak at the top.
Right. This is clip art, and you're expecting policy from it, but that's not how.
Right. And you probably made that food pyramid with AI. You probably didn't even pay an illustrator to draw the cow for that dairy section of your food pyramid.
No, but I want to go back to the tax part. So, of course, the constant idea that fat people are the reason that our taxes are so high. I feel like only recently, in this campaign and on social media and other conversations, have they just really started talking about fat people and how gross and disgusting fat people are. Before then, they were talking about, mitochondrial dysfunction and all of these like dog whistles for fatness, but only when Mike Tyson came into the picture that they started talking about like hardcore fat people are gross. Beforehand, it was like, unhealthy and metabolically unhealthy. I don't know.
No, but we have decades of evidence that literally and figuratively beating up on fat people gets more ratings than talking about food science. So why wouldn't we? Right. And I read something this morning about how like when they were filming this commercial, they had an actual script for Mike Tyson, which I would love to see, and that they couldn't get him to stick to the script. So they let him just start ad-libbing. And that's how they got to like the fat and nasty part. And, I'm curious about like, what did the original script say? And was it kinder? And then were they like, but actually this toxic masculinity and violence is going to really light people up. Let's just go with that. Right.
Yeah.
Because, again, like I spoke with a journalist from Mashable about this. And one of the questions she asked me was like, well, who do you think the audience for this is?
Mm-hmm.
The audience is not fat people. This is not a commercial that's intended to like motivate you to do better with your health. Check out these government resources for how you can do better with your nutrition, right? That's not the audience, right? The audience, and my answer to her was like, well, the audience is clearly dude bro podcasters and they're legions of fans. Yeah. It's what I call the shirtless dude bros of YouTube, right? These people who just like, I don't know why they're always shirtless, but they just make videos like railing about fat logic or whatever. And like,
ooh,
and
fat just, like, logic. Yes, there you are. Yeah.
They just like are so mad that fat people won't just be sad about being fat. We love this narrative. We love the narrative. It's in popular culture, it goes, it's not just the whale, like it goes back to like that opening scene of Death Becomes Her. If you know that movie, there's like this opening scene, this Goldie Hawn movie. It's like a fat suit scene. And it's like Goldie Hawn is like a childless cat lady, which we also know that the, conservatives love to invoke that image. And like Goldie Hawn's like a childless cat lady who's just like surrounded by fast food wrappers and she's like fat and it's a fat suit. And then, whatever, I don't know, the story has, spoiler alert, the story has some kind of magical shit happens and she becomes thin. And then she's perfect. Yay. And then chaos ensues in some other ways. But that image of like, all fat people are sad and they're eating because they're sad. And that's the only reason they're eating. And they're eating volumes and volumes of food because they're sad. First of all, if you or someone you care about is a fat person who matches that description in some way, then we should get you or that person some help for your mental health. The fact that you are fat is not the issue, right? The fact that if you're swimming in fast food garbage, that's clearly a mental health issue. It doesn't have anything to do with your body size. If you were thin and swimming in fast food garbage, I would also want you to get some help, right? But also, like, do you know, I am I run the fat people organization. I know more fat people than anybody other than, the quote unquote obesity advocates, right? They don't eat like that. We don't eat like, and if you're having that, that's an eating disorder, or that's a mental health issue, or that's something that you need help with, but it's not because of your body size. And you might get help with that and then have, Mike Tyson, I'm going to say the specific number that he said, right? Like Mike Tyson's like, I was 345 pounds and I was eating anything in my sight and I would eat a quart of ice cream, a pint of ice cream every hour or whatever. All right.
Quart of ice.
That's I'm in a similar weight range. I do not eat like that. I know other people in that range and bigger. We don't eat like that. Like, it's a myth. So like, there are people who are eating destructively, people of all sizes who are eating destructively. We should care about that. And we should have like care and compassion about them, not just call them nasty and make a joke about slapping food out of their hands. This is not how we help people, right? And so, my God, but we are obsessed. We are culturally obsessed in popular culture, in health and wellness culture, in quote unquote anti-obesity advocacy. Like, we are obsessed with this shit. We give people Oscars for this shit. So of course, that gets higher rating. You're not going to spend $8 million on a Super Bowl commercial that's like, let's talk about micronutrients and how to balance your protein and carbohydrate, intake for optimal health, right? Even the language around like, let's eat more nutrient-rich food, okay, yes, let's. How do we get that?
Yeah.
Eggs are nutrient rich. Eggs are nutrient rich. Did you move the eggs to the top of your food pyramid? How can we get them not to be $9 an egg? Well, that's what we need from public policymakers, right? We don't stop telling people to not eat Doritos and stop making Doritos 99 cents at the convenience store while eggs are $9. Come on. Right? But this is your expertise, right? Like, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm an advocate for fat people. My work is about size discrimination. And I'm telling you that these kinds of images reinforce people's right to discriminate, and they reinforce and they disempower people who are being discriminated against. Because when you have this continuous messaging that if you are fat, parentheses, and nasty, that is your fault, is caused by some kind of trauma, and it's your fault, and you can turn it around with an apple, so why haven't you turned it around with an apple yet? Then, if someone is doing something to you, like not paying you fairly for your work, or not providing you a seat at the educational institution where you are trying to be educated, right? Or public transit is difficult for you, and we don't care about that, we're going to make these seats smaller, or whatever. Like, when those things are happening, you are much less likely to defend yourself if you have seen the entire internet cheering for Mike Tyson being like, that's why you shouldn't be fat though. Right? So these things have, these things have implications that go well beyond health, but also even that circles back to health, right? Because we know that stress and trauma and discrimination decrease people's health.
1,000%.
Do you want people to be healthy? If you want people to be healthy, you work on building a more fair world.
Okay. You talked about obsession earlier, and that is one thing that I really, really want to know. Why are thin people so obsessed with fat people? Is it because thin people are so afraid of becoming fat, and it's not even like becoming fat? Is it because they're so afraid of experience anti-fatness? Do thin people feel really good about themselves for only eating carrots and an apple in a day? And like, that's something that they need to have as part of their eating disorder? And that what is it? I don't know.
You're naming I'm counting them off because you're naming the answers to your question as you expand the question, right? Like, yeah, I mean, it's a bunch of that stuff. And it's not just thin people either. It's also fat people who are still like very invested in the sort of like good fatty idea, or the weight loss fantasy, or the sort of like the swan story of becoming, I'm going to get to be. It's sort of like the people who don't want to tax billionaires because they might win the lottery one day. And they don't want to have to pay taxes when they win the lottery. Like, there's some of that shit from people of all sizes around fatness, right? Like, I might not be the ideal now, but I'm gonna be someday, and I don't want people to be. I don't want that to have less cultural prevalence when I get there than it has now, right? So there's also some of that from people of all sizes. Look, thinness is prioritized in the culture, so people have thin privilege. Period. Like, sometimes people want to have that argument, and I'm just like, I'm not going to have that argument. Thin people have privilege. Yes. Although to hear some MAHA advocates argue it, body positive people have shamed thin people out of being allowed to be healthy. So there's that. But like, okay, people have privilege. They don't want to lose their privilege. And if they are people who are more privilege aware, or who are thinking about how to utilize their privilege to make a more fair, equitable world for everybody, it's hard to know where to start. And it is so culturally affirmed to do the other thing. Right? It's just so culturally affirmed. It's not hard to me to know where to start, but I think, if the reach of these messages, the pervasiveness of the message, and the cross-generational and like multimedia pervasiveness of the message, that no matter how we try to say fat is that people can be healthy even though they're fat, or that people can be unhealthy even though they're thin, or that fat is attractive, or like any of these things that kind of go against the cultural norms. The message is, no matter how much we say that, everybody ultimately still secretly wishes they could be thin. And everybody would choose thinness over fatness given the chance. So anybody who's not choosing thinness over fatness, it's only because they don't think there's a chance. And the proliferation of the GLP-1s, and especially the proliferation of the marketing around the GLP-1s, the narrative around the GLP-1s, has reinforced that idea, because we've seen it in front of our own eyes a lot in the last year or so. The idea that like people who said they were okay with this, or said they could be healthy like this, or said they were beautiful like this, given the chance, they're going to switch up, right? And so it undermines the idea that some people actually mean it when they say we don't think health is inherently tied to body size. That, aspects of health that are tied to body size are tied also to the experience of living in those bodies, not just the fact of the body itself. Right. Like, that fat people are attractive, that like all of those things. There are some of us who actually genuinely mean that. But that sort of like, inside every fat person, there's a thin person dying to get out is such a universal belief that it's just culturally rewarded all the time. You get more attention, you make more money. Like, it's very clear to me. I'm an accomplished person, right? Like I have degrees, I've published a book, I've been, done media projects that people think are important. Like, I'm an accomplished person. It is very clear to me that even after years of being an advocate for fat people and being, as we say, 10 toes down for fat folks, that if I lost weight, I would be more rewarded for that than I have been rewarded for anything else I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's that big, right? It's that big. And so, so then that shows you what the cost is if you get fat. And what the cultural cost is, what the social cost is. And you've also been told all your life that there's a health cost and you're going to die early. And this piece about Mike Tyson's sister dying at 25 is so heartbreaking to me because it should be a tragedy when somebody dies at 25 because they died. And it shouldn't be like immediately the culprit is her body. It's her fault she died. She shouldn't have been so fat. Right. And even trying to frame that as like, it's ultra processed food's fault that she died. That's not how we've been taught for decades to process that message. So even when you actually say it that way, you know that what you're activating is that other response of it's her fault that she died, right? Yeah. Even if you are somebody who genuinely believes you're the most well-meaning person in the world when it comes to public health and nutrition, and you genuinely believe that ultra processed foods is a real category of food and that ultra processed foods are only the bad foods, right? Like, I was just walking around Costco this morning looking at all this stuff. This whole shit about the war on protein, RFK Jr., and like now the war on protein is over with the new food pyramid. War on protein. There are 482 products in this row in Costco that all have the word protein blazoned across the package the same way that low fat was blazoned across the package in the Snackwell cookies days. Right? Yeah. Remember the Snackwell cookies days, right? Yeah. Like those of us of a certain vintage will remember. If you don't, there are some great fat positive podcasts that have analyzed the Snackwell cookies days. But like when we had the low fat craze, when we had the low carb craze, when we had it's the same thing, right? And now everything is labeled high protein or how many grams of protein or whatever. There's the war on protein is like the war on Christmas. Like, why do we have 5,000 Hallmark Christmas movies if there's a war on Christmas right now? It's the same thing with protein, right? It's the same thing with protein. There's no war. But like, even if you are the person who genuinely believes Americans need to be eating more higher protein food, and I'm like, even if you genuinely believe all that, if you didn't just arrive on Earth yesterday, then you know that this kind of messaging around bodies and body size in relation to fat has always upheld stigma against fat people, always gets weaponized against fat people, and is used to abuse and degrade fat people. So don't activate that message if your actual intention is health improvement for people. If your actual intention is individual and public health improvements, do not activate the same messaging. Don't go into the diet culture toolbox and use the same words that they use and the same tools that they use.
My gosh. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Listeners, I'm very sorry. I just yelled into the microphone. But okay, just to make sure, the protein stuff, and were you referencing the ultra processed food stuff as well? Like that language, like don't be.
Well, the thing about the ultra processed food stuff is like everything I looked at in Costco that is labeled high protein, because that's the language that's effectively activating people right now, is a processed food. I wasn't walking around the produce section of Costco, and I wasn't walking around. It's not like the meat all has big red stickers on it. It's protein, right? It's it's the processed food. But then when we say ultra processed food, what we mean is those fat people need to stop eating Twinkies.
Thank you.
Or our kids need to stop eating Lunchables. That's what we mean. That's what we talking about, right? But like, But then if the ultra processed food that you're eating is, I'm having a high protein shake every morning, and then I'm having a protein bomb oat and dark chocolate bar, and then I'm having this high protein chobani, nobody is going like, we got to stop all this food process. Nobody's arguing that people on SNAP benefits should not be able to buy high protein chobani. Mm-hmm. Right? They're arguing that people on SNAP should not be able to buy Lunchables for their kids, should not be able to buy Cheetos. And I don't have my horse in that fight is more about like, are we beating up on the fat kid because they ate a Cheeto? That's my horse in that race.
Sure.
See, I said my horse in that fight. See,
Mike,
this violent boxer stuff has me talking about fighting. My horse in that race is about like, I don't want to beat up on anybody for their food choices. I think that moralizing food choices is problematic, and that we need to disconnect that, right? That connection between morals and if we want to talk about morals and ethics and food, then let's talk about, let's talk about capitalism and the food industry. Sure. But then let's actually talk about that. Not just like PepsiCo is bad, but this high protein supplement I sell through my website is also a processed high protein supplement powder doesn't grow out of the ground.
I know.
That is a processed food, right? And so
it costs again $60.
Right. And like again, this is not my area of expertise, but the reason I have to have some understanding of these things is because they always activate more stigma and bias and prejudice and discrimination against fat people. And my area of expertise is discrimination against fat people and supporting fat people and changing perceptions of fat. That is literally the mission of the organization that I run, NAAFA. Changing perceptions of fat to end size discrimination. And if the perception of fat is whatever Mike Tyson slaps out of your hand is going to make you, is he's stopping you from being fat. Right? Because Mike Tyson's not going to slap that out of your hand and then pat you on the back and be like, now your cholesterol is going to be great on your next lab work. He's going to see, now you're not going to be so fudgy. When did we start calling people fudgy, by the way? Does he just not know what the word
I had
pudgy
so
is?
many questions
Does he not know
about
the word
that.
pudgy?
I feel like fudgy is the whole, I was like, I'm not going to make fun of this word because I feel like maybe he meant to say pudgy and couldn't pronounce it correctly. But fudgy people own episode. But Tigress, let me ask you something. Okay. Like, let me ask you
that fudgy t-shirt. Get that fudgy people t-shirt.
Yes. Do you want me to? I mean, I will not. I won't wear one, but I'll put them on my website. Oh my God!
Hey,
oh,
do it.
Okay. I'll follow up with you on.
We're reclaiming fudgy people in the same
and
way
not
that
even
reclaiming like glorifying. We're glorifying obesity, and we're celebrating fudgy people.
But it didn't exist until Sunday, so there's really not. I mean, I guess you have a week of reclaiming to do, so that should be easy. I feel like that.
It was invented on Sunday and immediately tied to anti-fat stigma. Great job. We're accelerating new vocabulary around stigmatizing fat people. They were going to accelerate reclaiming the words. But yeah, like I mean, that's the thing is like it's not I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a public health official, but I do in my work have to look at the systems that impact fat people if I'm going to advocate for fat people. Those systems impact people, and certainly the media impacts people. We're talking about a Super Bowl commercial. This is one of this is one of the ways we export globally export anti-fatness from the US to the whole rest of the world too, right? Because this is one of the most watched moments in the world. We know that Bad Bunny's halftime show is the most watched Super Bowl halftime show of all time. It's got a rating of what is like 145 million viewers or whatever. And as you pointed out, this immediately follows that. There are people who haven't walked away yet. There are people who are still dancing in their chairs right now, right? They're, and they only walked away if they went to get their, flags of the entire Americas so they can march around their living room with those dancing, right? Maybe they walked away to do that. But like people are literally still dancing, and what we're supposed to be Googling in that moment is like, did we just see Pedro Pascal dancing in the back of the thing? That's what we're supposed to be Googling, right?
Was that Jessica Alba? I don't know. Yes, it was.
Yes, that's what we're supposed to be doing in that moment. Yeah. We're not supposed to be reeling because Mike Tyson just called everybody fat. And that narrative, the other piece of that narrative we haven't talked about yet, especially because this is directly connected to a government website, and a government website that has also relanguaged stuff around health to be about national security and national pride. Right? America is the greatest country in the world, so we shouldn't have the most fat people. Mm-hmm. We can't be great if we have all these fat asses. This is not something that started with this administration, right? Even in the most recent years, if you looked at the CDC website 3 years ago, half of the stuff about obesity is actually about military readiness and are people too fat to go into the military? We know which people go into the military because of lack of opportunity to do other things, poor people and Black and brown people. So we know who they want to not be fat so they can sacrifice us to the Defense Department. Mm-hmm. So there's that, right? So that's where we got to ring all these alarms. These poor and Black and brown people that we're used to being able to trap into military service because they don't have other options, because we presented this as an option for improving generational wealth and improving generational financial stability. It's not, we can't use that if they're too fat to be in the military. Wow. So we got to address this, right? We got to address this. But that's the CDC website 2 years ago. Not after Trump was elected, right? That's the Biden CDC website. Mm-hmm. So like this connection, but then you have, Hegseth talking about the fat generals and all of this other stuff, like all of this stuff around like national identity and anti-fatness. Mm-hmm. It has connections to white supremacy, it has connections to nationalism, and it is about defining what the national ideal is. Mm-hmm. And the national ideal is a particular kind of fitness that looks like a particular kind of fitness. Yes. And anything else is disposable. Mm-hmm. Anything else is disposable. Anything else is not good enough. Anything else needs to be changed or obliterated. Mm-hmm. And so when you then have the health website of the federal government echoing those sentiments, mm-hmm. then what about people who can never achieve those health profiles, who can never look like that, who can never feel like that, whose bodies are never going to work like that? If you don't have the military readiness of an 18-year-old with a very particular athletic, health and fitness profile, then you're invaluable to the country? Come mm-hmm. on. Yes. Oh, yeah. Mike Tyson doesn't have that military readiness himself. That man is 59 years old.
Yeah, nor does our president. But okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And many people will not remember this part, but like Mike Tyson he's been fat. He's also been a part-time wheelchair user because of his sciatica, and bragged about how that's the only health problem he's ever had. Side note, mental health problems. But like, everybody can have moments of their lives or entire lives where they cannot access being acceptable to those kinds of health and appearance standards. Mm. And so again, like, what are we talking about when we're talking about health? We're talking about just disposing of all those people? Are we talking about not using any of our taxpayer money to help the health and wellness of anybody who's not already deemed healthy and well? Mm. What are we doing?
Mm-hmm. Before we wrap, you and I are old enough to remember Mike Tyson actually boxing and mm-hmm. the stuff that he did, like chewing off somebody's ear, and the stuff that he used to say.
They incorporated that into the press conference. If y'all saw that press conference, Making It Awkward listeners, if y'all saw any of that press conference, or you go look it up after this, and they make these references to like, Mike's going to take a bite out of something different this time. Yeah. That man literally bit a piece off of Evander Holyfield's ear during a boxing match. Listen to this again. He bit it off. It wasn't like a love bite. It wasn't like a little, he nibbled on it. He bit a chunk out of that man's ear and spat it out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's, and then we accepted it as just like sort of the lore of Mike Tyson, right? There used to be all these big debates and think pieces and stuff. Please also remember that the MAHA movement is predominantly white and is tied to white supremacy and nationalism, even when they like to, my best friends are Black, and then, trot out the Herschel Walker or the whoever they've got next, whatever, right? Even when they do that stuff. And please know that in the history of Mike Tyson as a public figure, there was a lot of invoking like the black savage and the violent black man, and that he was actually violent, right? In his professional life and outside of his professional life. But there was a lot of like academic analysis of that and stuff when he was rising to popularity, and a lot of like, and this was at the same time as all these like Clinton era super predator narratives about black men and violence and stuff. So like, you've really gone to the sunken place. when you are out here, you know, hot boxing with ultra processed foods, in the name of the Trump administration, because that's the other thing. Looking at stuff today, like I was looking at all that stuff on the first day, and on day one, it's just, you know, Mike Tyson eats an apple for good health or whatever. But like looking at some stuff this morning, like I said, I didn't look at a lot of stuff between the 2 points, but this morning I was like, let me just do a quick check about some of this. And a lot of it now is also invoking Trump's name, right? It's not just RFK's Health and Human Services Department has done these things. It is the Trump administration has done these things.
I see. Yeah.
And that's real, right? That's who appointed this man to this job. So like that's real. And we should invoke Trump's name when we're critiquing how this whole system is working and how this is a piece of that. But that's not why conservatives are invoking Trump's name. They're invoking Trump's name to claim this as a victory for the whole administration. You know, it's part of the win. You know, there's a reason why we're MAHA-ing it. And it is to activate the MAGAs, right? Because MAHA and MAGA don't have the same base, right? They just have like sort of a Venn diagram of terribleness in the middle. Right. And it's like about, you know, getting, I don't know, how can we get these people who also fit the profile of everybody we're making fun of, right? Fat and pudgy and fudgy, fat and fudgy, nasty, lazy, whatever they're invoking with all of these images. Those are the same things that everybody, including people on the left who are supposed to be, you know, body liberationists, etc., talk shit about MAGA. So how do you then get the same people you're talking shit about and the people who really, really don't want to hear about the micronutrients or the whatever of the science, right? How do you get those people to get excited about this? You have Mike Tyson slap a donut out of somebody's hand. And then I guess you have Kid Rock write a jingle to go with that. I don't know.
Oh, Lord. No. Can't.
Like, you get Jelly Roll to sing some kind of anti-donut, someone eat real food or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. The only thing that I would say to close is you mentioned in the middle ultra processed foods, but none of this has been ultra processed foods. It's 1000% processed food. And so when I've gone on the internet and said cutting an apple is a processed food, the people just don't understand. Like they'll follow up. The trolls, the people who are obsessed with me, honestly, who just are there for, I don't know, the giggles, will be like, what are you saying? That a apple slice is a processed food? And like, yes, that is what I'm saying. So we have they didn't even do ultra processed foods kills. They went to processed food kills. And I'm like, just another example of you have no idea. And I don't know what, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, it's a mess, right? It's a mess of lack of actual and meaningful public policy around food, around growing food, around transporting food, around equitably paying and maintaining the safe work conditions for people in the food industry. It's like there's so many public policy entry points if you wanted to actually improve the food system, or you wanted to actually improve the health of people in the US or people globally who also eat, you know, US exports or aspire to eat the processed food that we have made culturally iconic. You know, that everything from like, you know, people all over the world recognize the name brands of some of our processed foods, because we've exported that as culture. And that's also part of why it's hard to break the hold, right? Is it's actually culture. Like, we don't just, you know, people don't just love or hate Peeps because it's their favorite Easter candy. It's also, you know, the way that it's marketed, the way it's sold, the way it's talked about, the memories that it brings up for people, like all of that stuff. And we present that to, you know, we present that in the form of lots of products to poor people as aspirational, right? You know, it's not stop drinking those sugary sodas. It's like, can you drink an actual Coke instead of that, you know, Safeway pop or whatever, you know, like you know, can you have Otter Pops when you're a kid instead of, you know, Fruity Pop ices or whatever? Yes. Like, can you, like, right? Like, we've tied all of this aspiration and capitalist aspiration to food in all of these like different ways. And you can't do the same. I mean, I guess you can kind of do like eat these slightly fancier pears or something. I don't know. I was going to say cheese, but guess what cheese is? Also not something that grows out of the ground. Like, these are all processed. Yep. And
yep. Over half
so
the
like,
things.
all of that stuff. I mean, I owe so much to like you, and I think about like Patrilli, and like they're just like some of the folks that I work with or that I work alongside. Because like, again, I'm not a nutritionist, but I'm super nutritionist adjacent. You know, the folks at the BIPOC Eating Disorders Conference, like the organizers and the participants, like all of these people that I've learned so much from about. Because my instinct to be critical about the whole ultra processed food argument is just like, this seems to be coming from people who are upholding a whole bunch of other cultural bullshit that is anti-fat and anti-everything else that I value. Yeah. But like the actual, like, stop, slow down and think about what these words mean. Mm-hmm. And then how they are being used. And again, you know, part of my role is changing media narratives about fat people. And the narratives about food always get connected to fat people, whether it's fat people eating them or not. And, or whether it's fat people exclusively eating them or not. And so I do always have that, like I said before, that sort of follow the money instinct of like, who stands to make a whole lot of money off of shutting down Nabisco? It's just like when the autism and acetaminophen thing came out, and I was like, somebody at Tylenol really pissed somebody off, or, you know, like I'm like, who is it at Frito-Lay that really pissed you guys off? And where are you hoping that Frito-Lay money is going to go instead? You're not hoping it's going to go back into Americans' pockets. No. You're hoping it's going to go from this, you know, you're hoping it's going to go from the $2.25 Ruffles to some fucking $8 nonsense. Yes. Or just grapes are $8 now, right? Or just like chicken breasts are, the rotisserie chicken's not $8 at your local grocery store. Now it's $45 or whatever. Like, and so I don't know. I'm gonna spin out in a tangent again around this, but I just like, it's interesting. The choice of Tyson is interesting because the tactic of punching down is widely used by this entire administration. And widely used by the entire health and wellness industry as a way of activating people's anger about anyone who dares not to conform to the health and beauty ideals that they have spent their time trying to conform to. Or that they were born into conformity to, because they hit that sort of DNA lottery and got the genes that give you those things in the first place. Mm-hmm. And so, like, it's interesting that, like, we went from, like, figurative punching down to, like, we're just going to literally get somebody who punches people, and then we're going to have him be the messenger. Yeah. Yeah. We're going to have him be the messenger. And the cosplaying of something, I don't even know what it is, with all these fake Mike Tyson facial tattoos. Oh. It's just puzzling to me, right? It's just like, what is it that you're putting on right now? And what are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? So yeah, that's not my most cohesive closing thought, but like, what are y'all doing? That's my whole, That's how I feel about MAHA. What are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? And why does anybody believe you're doing it in the name of health? I mean, like somewhere down the MAHA food chain, there are certainly people who I believe this about sort of, all of these wellness spaces, that there are people who are genuinely interested in health and wellness. They're just not willing to ask any of the critical questions about whether the party line that they've been told the whole time is health and wellness. And part of what's genius about MAHA is what they are saying is the party line you've been told the whole time is not. So they're activating all the like conspiracy theory people or all of the people who are the ones usually questioning or whatever, except they're just giving you a different party line. They're not asking you to ask more questions. They're asking you not to ask any questions about what they're saying. I don't think that's what we do in fat liberation spaces or, social justice spaces. We don't ask you not to ask any questions about us. We don't ask you not to ask any questions about the new ideas we're introducing to you if they are new to you. We ask you to ask questions about everything, including us. And that's where it's like, even when people, I think, are, this work always reminds me over and over again about like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I think there are well-intentioned people that are sort of like, I can't allow myself to say that there are well-intentioned people who actually identify as MAHA. Once you've crossed the line. But like, I guess there are MAHA adjacent people, or there are people who share some of the same questions that MAHA has around things like how food is processed or whether food is being engineered in certain ways, or like those kind of things. But then ask all the questions and stop dismissing the fat people just because we're fat. We know shit. We know shit that y'all don't know because we've paid attention to these patterns of it happening over and over and over again.
Yes.
I don't know what to say.
We'll do a part 2 because only over the last
because there's probably going to be a series of these commercials. Are there going to be a series of these commercials? Are they going to be like every time a new episode of Mike Tyson's Netflix show drops, there's going to be like a new social media post that's him slapping something else out of someone else's hands?
1000%. It's only gotten worse in the last 5 days. 6 days. Bad. It's gone bad.
And I'm not trying to suggest a TikTok challenge, but I'm telling you it's coming. There already, there used to be people who did, like, there was one in the early days of TikTok where it was just like go around and slap fat people on the stomach or like something like that. I think it was Tosh 2.0 that started that dumb shit. But like, this is just the kind of stuff that like, that's what goes viral, right? And then whose lives are made harder because of that? Because everything that's like, oh, it's just a joke, oh, it's just a joke. Mike Tyson saying like, eat good or else. That's just a joke. Yeah, it's maybe.
Definitely not.
Maybe, but it won't be a joke when people are doing it to people who are more vulnerable.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Come back. Come back. We're going to talk about it again.
I will come back anytime you ask me. We will hopefully have something better to talk about than this.
Okay. So, yes. Yes, we will.
Yes, we will.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. I thank you for doing all the work that you do around this all the time.
Same. Thanks so much to Tigress for coming back on the show. I can confidently say that she'll be back soon. Until next time, friends, enjoy something that ends in Edos and make it awkward. This has been Making It Awkward. I'm Jessica Wilson. You can find me on Instagram at jessicawilson.msrd. You can email the pod at makingitawkwardpod@gmail.com. This is edited by Jen Jacobs, who I'm going to guess his favorite Edos are Cheetos. She'll tell me if I'm wrong. And it's supported by the legacy of Sacramento Outboard Services.